Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Sage Estimating webinar. This is Mike Fiducia, Territory Manager for New York and New Jersey. And also on the line, we have Rob Napa, who's the Director of our Estimating Products. So this morning, we're going to talk to you guys about smart assemblies and how you can leverage those in your database and build quicker, more efficient estimates. So real quick, we're just going to walk through a few slides in a PowerPoint. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to review what a smart assembly is, how they're built, and how you can perform takeoff using those assemblies. So a little bit about assemblies, if you're not familiar. Assembly is a group of any items in your database, whether that be material, labor, equipment. We can include fixed quantities, something such as mobilization, where we include a flat rate. Custom calculations, and that can depend on wall height, length, perimeter, and then we can also include stored formulas that we can build in our item tables that we'll touch on later. Within, we can also use custom calculations, right? So we can include variables and formulas. So we can, you know, if we're doing a concrete slab, how deep is it? What's the square footage? Things like that. So we can answer a series of questions and then populate our quantities in just seconds. So using smart assemblies, what's it going to do for us, right? Well, it's going to reduce errors. It's going to increase accuracy and decrease takeoff time, because instead of going through one by one, adding the items, changing the quantities for each items, by selecting assembly, there's some logic built behind it, so it's going to answer some of those questions for us and leave some variables up to us so we can answer those and get the right quantities in. Also, your accessories and connectors are going to be selected based off what you are selecting in the assembly. So things like door hinges and lock sets, those will be selected as you're picking the assembly you need. You know, but these aren't hard. You can change them. They're not, you know, they're not locked in. They are easily changeable, and what it's going to do is give you some more details in your estimate as opposed to just keeping it high level or generic. You know, we're going to get down to nitty gritty, lock sets, hinges, screws. We can do whatever we want. So we're going to get into Sage Estimating right now. So I have an estimate open, and first thing we want to do, I want to show you an assembly and how it works first. Then we're going to go build one. So if we go to if we go to Takeoff and we click on Assembly, here is a list of all the assemblies in our database broken down by divisions. So if we come to
Hey, Michael, it's Rob. I don't think we're seeing your estimating screen. I'm just seeing the PowerPoint.
Okay, give me one sec. Sorry about that.
There we go.
See it now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. We're on the wrong screen. Not a problem, though. So we're in Sage Estimating. I have an estimate open, and what we're going to do is take off an assembly. So here's a list of all the assemblies I have in my database. And we'll do some, let's see, we'll go to interior construction instead, and we'll do a drywall on metal frame. So you'll see that it shot over all of these variables on the right-hand side. So by answering these, it will populate all of the correct quantities we need based off the assembly we have built for this partition wall. So we can say it's a 20-foot wall. It's 10 feet high. We can change it. We could say it's actually an 8-foot wall. Here we can change the stud thickness. So we'll keep it at 3 5/8. Stud gauge. Spacing is a 16 on center, 12 or 24. Let's just say it's 24 so we can show you how to change it. The wall board thickness, and we have 3/8. Let's say we're going to do half-inch board. Wall board rating, is it fire resistant, water resistant, fire and water resistant? We'll say it's fire. How many layers are we doing? 1, 2, 6. And are we finishing both sides of this wall, or do we only need one side finished? So let's actually change it to 1. And what's the what's the level finish we're doing? Is it a level 3 finish, level 5? So we can change that here, and we'll do a maximum finish. And how are we hanging this board? We clipping or throwing it in? So we'll screw it in. And do we need insulation? Yeah, we're going to put fiberglass. We'll do paperback. Okay. So now you'll see that I answered those questions. It has pre-filled all of these items down below. Okay, so we need 160 square feet of studs. We need 320 square feet of drywall, 160 square feet of board, nailer, screw, taping and joints. We have our other fire resistant board, and we have 160 square feet of insulation. So we can actually add that pass. Click OK. And now it has populated our estimate with those items. Okay. And we can view it. These are the items broken out, but we can actually view it in assembly form, right? So here's that assembly and all the items included. Okay. So what we want to do now is show you how you can quickly build an assembly. So we'll go back to our Takeoff tab. We're going to click Item, and let's build a door assembly. So we're going to go down to Doors and Frames. We can select a hollow metal frame, and we'll do a 3.0 door. So we'll do a 3.7 door. This is the frame, right? So now we have to select the door, and we'll pick flush door, and we'll get a 3.070. And then what else do we need? We need some hardware. So we'll go down to collapse this, and go to hardware, and we'll select some hinges, and we'll also select a latch set. Okay? So we have these items. Notice it hasn't populated those questions because we're not building an assembly. We're actually taking off items. But here's what we're going to do. We need one frame, one door, and we're going to do 3 hinges. So this is a pair of hinges, so we're actually going to do 1.5, and then we need 1 latch set. So if we come up to hit our data tab, what you're going to see up here is Save as Assembly. So let's do that. We'll click that. Now it's going to allow us to generate this assembly on the fly. So we'll give it a number. We can give it a description, and we'll call it a single solid door with hollow metal frame, and it's going to be a 3.070 door. Okay. Assembly unit is going to be each, and our calculation just needs to be 1. You'll see that we can either save this to the database or save it as a one-time item. Depending on your estimator's permissions in the system, if you only allow them to create one-time items and then have the head estimator review before it's actually saved to the database, you can set that as well. So we can go in and save it, and you'll see under our calculations, it's giving us factors of the numbers we selected, right? So 1, 1, 1.5, and 1. So let's save this real quick. We'll close this. Now we can go back to our Takeoff, and let's go in and find that door assembly. Close that real quick. Go back. Or nope. Sorry about that. 1 second, guys. Here, construction. And here it is. All right, so it has now, because we have not added any variables or formulas to this, all we need to know is how many doors do we need, right? So if we need 6 of these, click the pass, and now it's added 6 frames, 6 doors, 9 pairs of hinges, and 6 lock sets. So we can add that to our estimate. We go back, we're in our estimate view, and here it is already in the estimate. Okay, so you guys can go through whether you guys purchase a database, a pre-configured database that we have available, or you're looking to build on your own. You can do this in either database. And if you're building your own from scratch, you'll see how quickly you can actually create these assemblies and then have a robust database in no time. So what we want to do is just touch on, we're not going to show you guys how to build item tables and variables, but we just want to touch on it and show you the power of it. So if we come back into our data tab and we open up one of our smart assemblies, we can select, let's go back to that, that wall we did, right? So we'll go into partition, drywall, metal frame, and door. So you'll see that you have these little squares next to it. That means that they are coming from an item table. But above that, let's talk about, we gave it assembly number, description, assembly unit. This is going to be in square feet. And then we have a couple calculations up here, right? So we can actually right click and take a look at this formula. So what it's telling you is the square foot of the wall area is length times height, right? Pretty simple. So it can be as simple as that, or it can start to get a little more complex. And you'll see over here, we have a formula built using a variety of our items and functions in the database. So each of these are their own formulas, so or they include, variables. And here's how you can build the variables, right? So for stud thickness, what are our options? Well, we have 2.5, 3 5/8, 4 or 6-inch studs. So now when we have this variable and we're going to select it, and in the assembly, it will ask us which one of those do we want. Okay, so our consultants can show you how to build these and how to leverage the formulas and variables to get really in-depth on your assemblies. Okay, and then you'll see over here we also have in our calculations tab, we have functions and variables. So we have custom calculations, and again, these are square foot wallboard hung walls. So it is a variable and it is an area variable. And moving back, we have our walls finishes. If we right click on these, we can take a look at what makes up these item tables. Sorry, I'm working with a few screens over here. So your item tables can be one-dimensional or two-dimensional, right? So it's going to pull a couple different variables depending on if it's 1 or 2. So we have our wallboard fastening over here and our wallboard thickness. So for our fastening, we have 2 options, and our thickness, we have 4 options. So depending on the options you select, it will give you specific items in your database and give you specific calculations as far as length or height or area. Rob, is there anything you want to add at this point? Rob, can you hear me? Okay. Is there any questions from our attendees? Feel free, there is a questions tab where you can type in and ask the questions and we'll answer them.
I was on mute. I apologize. I was actually talking to myself. Sorry about that. Always forget to hit that unmute button. No, I think you did a great job. Assemblies they can be very, very simple. As Mike showed you with dragging and dropping items into a window and then setting up a very quick calculation, or they'd be very complex. It depends upon your need. The simple assembly, nowhere can you find a simpler assembly development than dragging and dropping into the window, calling it something, saving it into the database. And assemblies are critical in the takeoff process because it speeds things up dramatically. And then we have an assembly class called a boot camp, where you would join our consultants online in a virtual classroom, live virtual classroom, and learn exactly how these assemblies are built and how you can build your own assemblies. It's a very detailed class. It's a full day from 8:30 to 4:30 in assembly development. So we start out very simple and end up, with your understanding how to make some pretty complex assemblies to satisfy your needs. But I don't have anything to add to what Mike did, and we'd be looking for some questions now.
Sure. Rob, did you want to show how to do the quick takeoff that we were speaking about earlier, or keep that for another time?
You have the database, the GC database that
right.
That works well with. If you wanted to show that.
Well, I'll open up the GC database, and Rob, you just want to talk through it, and I'll show it on my screen.
Yeah. So there are several ways to perform takeoff in the Sage estimating tool. There's item takeoff. Well, I should say there's quick takeoff, and then item takeoff, and then assembly takeoff. Quick takeoff is very interesting because you can add items quickly from your item database into the spreadsheet. Once they're in the spreadsheet, there's a way to calculate, to easily enter dimensions into the spreadsheet to calculate your costs and your material costs and your labor costs. And this goes way back to the early days of the estimating tool. So you've got the GC database open. So if you go into quick takeoff, you can open up several items at a time and bring them into the spreadsheet. Very interesting that we we start out very simple and end up in the complex assembly world. We are convinced that this is the best software solution for doing any type of takeoff that you run into. So if you go into, you can go into things like concrete for footings, and then take rebar and add all of that into your estimate, and then literally paint the column and enter dimensions all at one time. I think we should probably show them, because I don't know if if these same folks were here to show e-takeoff integration too, Mike. So go down and grab footing forms and open up footing forms and just pull an item in. Grab footing forms and drive that into the spreadsheet. And then take keyway in footing as well in the same breath. Yeah, there you go. And then go grab some footing concrete. Yeah, you're in form, so go down and grab some concrete footing concrete. There you go. Concrete footing, grab 3,500 PSI, close that window. Yeah, that's all you got to do. Just close the quick takeoff window. Yeah, and then paint the takeoff quantity. Right click, enter dimensions. And there's the dimension. So this is interesting, right? So you give it a length, give it a width of the footing, and a depth of the concrete. There you go. And notice it takes those items off at one time. That is a really, really simple. So imagine going through the database and bringing all the items in that you need to quantify, right? And then painting the whole column. Because these items have formulas assigned to them in the back end, in the database, right? You can enter the dimensions for that footing, for that activity, and have it pull your prices in very, very quickly. There isn't a tool out there that can do something as simple as this, basically. So then you take this to the next step. I want to save this as an assembly so I can quantify all of those items at the same time forever, every time I run across them in a job. So that's where Michael showed you how to quickly drag and drop items into the bottom assembly window to create smart assemblies on the fly. Then we get more complex with training and get into formula tables and that kind of thing to become, so that you have many, many options in that assembly to quantify from. So all of this software, all of these functions go way back to the early days of Timberline. Most of you have heard of Timberline before. And we carried this functionality all through the current version of Microsoft SQL. So that's kind of all I have, unless you want to go and show them how to bring quantities in. I don't see any questions. Maybe you want to show some of these folks how to bring quantities in from Takeoff. Maybe they haven't seen that before, because we have some time left, don't we?
Sure, yeah, let's do that real quick. So we'll launch Takeoff. And close this down. Okay, so I just opened up a project in Takeoff. We already have some Takeoff done. So we have a separate webinar where we show you guys how to actually do the Takeoff. But for the purpose of today, let's just do one quick one. So we'll go into, let's see, we'll just pick a room.
So here's the idea. I'll just talk while Mike is grabbing some Takeoff. So we can access our assemblies in two different places. In estimating is where the assemblies reside, where we were a couple of minutes ago. Now, Mike is on the left-hand side of the screen, accessing those exact same assemblies in the Takeoff tool. And it's really powerful. So just like as he showed you earlier, he would be answering variable questions like length, height, width, depth, right? Concrete strength, what type of metal stud, is it insulated, not insulated? That's over in estimating. Well, if you look at the right-hand side of his screen, right in the center, it says partition on metal wall, on metal framing. There is that exact same assembly in our Takeoff tool. So you're quantifying the same items in the same assembly in Takeoff rather than estimating. In fact, the estimate isn't even started yet. So by taking off your dimensions digitally on a PDF, now answer the questions, the specification questions, right? The stud thickness, gauge, what type of wallboard and insulation, and so on. Once that's done, we'll drive that over into the estimate to price it all out. Sorry, Michael, I jumped in there.
No worries at all. Yeah, just notice that these are the same, this is the same assembly I opened up in Sage Estimating. So these are all those same variables, and we could have went in and changed any of them. So change the stud thickness, wallboard thickness, number of layers finished, and things like that. So what we have now is our bridge. So let's close the current bridge. Actually, let's open it up. We had one done already. I'm just closing that bridge out.
Yeah, we had one running already, so he's going to close off that.
We're going to
close
create
out
a
that
new
one.
That way you guys can see exactly how it's done, because you're going to be hopefully using e-takeoff to do your takeoff anyway. So we'll create a bridge and we'll call it La Quinta. Make sure, let's start a new estimate. We'll call it La Quinta over here.
So right here, see that the estimate wasn't open. There was no estimate related to the takeoff. You don't need one yet. So we just started created an estimate. And now you'll notice that all of those assemblies that he took off previously, including the drywall and metal framing, is available. It's in e-takeoff, it's in bridge, and we'll drive those quantities over into the estimate automatically. I mean, you spend most of your time in takeoff, right? That's where most of your time is spent. Analyzing the job, understanding the job by measuring all of the aspects of the job, your walls, your concrete, quantifying everything. Well, now, click one green button, and all of those assemblies will generate into the new estimate that Mike just generated, just created, and there it is. So there's all of the assemblies with detail below them from that drawing. Now you have plenty of time to manage this estimate, right? What can I do this job for? You don't spend 3 or 4 days highlighting with highlight pencils and highlighters on a paper drawing. You're done in at least half the time. Your takeoff, accurate, precise, digital takeoff. Now we have our quantities. Let's figure out what we can get this job for.
Yep, absolutely. And if you guys aren't familiar with e-takeoff at all and haven't sat on our last webinar, you see this little blue mark up in the corner of this. This is letting you know that it came from e-takeoff. So if you ever did want to go back and review, all you have to do is right-click on that. And what you're going to do is actually open the bridge. It will show you the takeoff in bridge, and it will also highlight it on the plan. So there are those walls that we just took off. So really easy if we need to come in and change those at all. If we need to edit our points, say this wall is going to increase to there. Let's just, for the sake of time, we'll quickly do that. We'll go into review. Oh, sorry about that. Save it. Quick review, and now you'll see that on our takeoff, there is a little pencil mark. This is letting us know that some takeoff has changed. So what changed? The length of the walls changed. So it'll let us know everything that has increased, right? So now instead of 239 feet of wall, we have 356. So if we want to make note of this to be able to see it, because say it was a revision on the plans, we'll say, size as per addenda. And we can send that over to the estimate. So if we go back and open the estimate now, you'll see that in our assemblies, it has updated that wall assembly, and it keeps track of our note over here. Another thing we can do is go in and review the assembly, and we have a true audit trail. So originally we had 239 square feet. That was our first pass. Our second pass is backing that takeoff out. And then our third is our new one. So here's that 356 lineal square feet. And you can type notes over here, or that were sent over from takeoff. So that way you have a true audit trail and can track where those changes come in. So any questions at this point? Well, I know I didn't do that good of a job, guys, so please ask questions.
They're all in awe.
I'm sure they are, like, oh man, I wasted all my time this morning. So we're ending a little bit early. Give another minute or so for questions to come in. And again, hopefully you guys are using Sage Estimating. If you're not, we'd love to set up a presentation for you guys and go into detail, not only in Sage Estimating, but the power of coupling it with Takeoff. And if there are any users on the call, any of our clients who already have Sage Estimating and you need some help building the assemblies, we'd love to set you up with one of our consultants where they can get to you in depth. We
also have boot camp training courses every month, usually the third Wednesday and Thursday of every month. It's a live, online, virtual classroom running through the estimating software from 8:30 to 4:30, 2 days in a row. Tremendous class. Our consultant, Joe Callahan, teaches it, wrote the class, uses a database that I think you might be very, very interested in. We showed half of it here. So training and learning how to use the software is not an issue. I think what happens a lot of times is, you get used to your Excel spreadsheets and it's hard to move off of those. Well, this is about as like Excel as you can get. And we'll teach you how simple this software is to use and how simple it is to build your own custom assemblies and go to whatever depth you feel you need. I know there's some users on the line today that are working on their own assemblies. Hopefully this helped a little bit today. But learning how to use the software is as easy as joining our boot camp, taking the time to run through the exercises. It's lecture and lab. And by the end of that boot camp, you're producing estimates. So we'd love to work with you. Let us know how we can help, and we'll follow up with you with phone calls and set up some one-on-one demonstrations with you and training if necessary. Can you bridge the new smart assemblies and estimating back to eTakeoff? The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm. So for the question, if we did have, so once we create new assemblies in our database, they will be available. We'd have to create the trace in eTakeoff, and then once we have that in as a trace and we have it in our estimating database, what we have to do is go and map the trace to the assembly, right? So we'll map the lineal feet, the height, and any other quantities that we are taking off. And then once it's mapped, it will always be there. Once mapped, always mapped. So the answer to your question is yes. All right, guys, if there are no other questions, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. As Rob said, we will follow up with everybody. If you'd like to set up one-on-one meetings, we'd be more than happy to do so, or send you information on our class that you guys can register for. Our contact information is up here. Most of you have it. If you don't, feel free to write it down. But again, we will be reaching out to everybody. So with that, we'll get you guys 10 minutes back to your day. And everybody, have a wonderful day. And we'll talk to you all soon.